Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and invite them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I'm thrilled this week to have my special guest, Herbert O'Neil. Thank you so much for being here, man. I am so excited to get to talk. Tell everybody who you are.
Well, I am glad to be here, Todd. It's so great to see you, and I want you to know I've always followed you and been excited about the things that you've done over the years. So I want to tell you how I appreciate the work that you've done across the state.
Thank you.
Thank you for your investment. But as he said, I'm Herbert O'Neil. I currently supervise principals in Greenville, Texas, just east of Dallas. It's a district of about 5,500 students, and so we have 10 campuses with 9 principals, and so I get to work with them every day, and it's been evolving as we deal with this COVID situation. But we're blessed in this district to have some great principals who love children, who love teachers, and so it really makes my job easy.
I love that. Well, what I always love to ask when I start with educators is, did you kind of grow up knowing education was in your path, or was that something that you kind of had to find out about later down the road?
So that's interesting. For me, it was kind of my father was a football coach and teacher, and my mother was an English teacher for 35 years. And so, which is kind of interesting, my mother had several sisters. They were all teachers. And my dad's sister was also a teacher. And so it was just kind of in my face. It was what I lived. It was what I saw every day. So I actually decided probably at about 3rd grade that I was going to be a teacher and that I was going to be a principal. It's kind of crazy. But it was just kind of what I always wanted to do. And so when I went to college, it's what I did. And I've been in school my whole life, and I still love it every day.
Well, you mentioned, so when you knew you wanted to become a teacher, did you kind of know what age you wanted to work with at that time, or was that kind of coming later too?
Yeah, it kind of came. I always, I ended up being a middle school teacher. So I taught 7th and 8th grade English, and I was a coach. And I always just kind of wanted to work with middle school kids. It's crazy. And maybe we'll talk down the line about kind of where my career went. But it was always with that age group of about 12 to 14. Some people kind of shy away from that age group, but I think they are fun. I think they are exciting. They trip you up every day. They have something new, and they were just fun. And when I was in college, I had the opportunity to work with them, and so I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And started out in middle school, and it was just fun every day.
Well, it's so funny because, I did that age in Sunday school, but teaching them all day, I bless you. There's just way too many hormones and opinions and things that go on that I couldn't have held myself together to deal with them. So it definitely takes special people, just like how people who normally work with secondary look at kindergarten teachers and think it takes a special person. I totally think that, you were the right man for the job. And so what do you think you really feel like you learned about yourself while working in the classroom?
Well, what I learned was I learned a lot of patience. For me, I like things to happen real fast. I think I want them to happen right then. I kind of want to be in control of stuff. But I learned, as a young man right away that wasn't the case, that, I needed to have patience with those kiddos, that they wanted to be there. They wanted to work. They wanted to learn. They wanted to make everyone happy. But it may not come right away the way I wanted it to. And so I learned to just slow down and to build relationships with kids. And if you take the time to get to know them, they'll really do anything for you. And I think I was nervous when I first went in, because I remember my dad telling me, and by the time I was a teacher, he had probably had 25 years in, and he was like, hey, son, you don't want to do anything wrong so that you don't, that you lose your job or let those kids run all over you. You can't. And so I think I went in, trying to be real tough and forgetting about the relationships that I needed to have with them. And so I kind of learned that real fast, that the relationships are what really matter.
Well, and at some point though, you make that decision that you think administration is in your path, and you kind of make that leap. When did you realize that you were ready to take that next step out of the classroom and into administration?
Oh, that's crazy how that happened. So right after I was teaching and coaching, having a lot of fun, like loving it. Loved what I was doing. I was in Waller, Texas at Waller Junior High. I had a great principal, Troy Mooney, and had great assistant principals. And I'd gone to school to get my master's, and I'd finished. And one of our I had helped our assistant principals sometimes. I had filled in for them, and I knew that I started believing that this is what I wanted to do, that I wanted to be an AP. But I'll never forget this day. I was sitting in my room kind of toward the end of the year. This was after my third year teaching, actually. And the assistant principal at the time came to my room, and she was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Just hanging out, And she was like, "I'm leaving," because she had gotten a promotion in another district. And she said, "You need to apply for the assistant principal's job." And I was like, "Me? What do you mean? I'm still one of the youngest ones on the campus."
Yeah.
And so I'm like, thinking maybe for 3 to 5 years, that'll be something that I want to do. And she said, "Herbert, you need to apply for the job. You need to go talk to Mr. Mooney. Let him know that you're interested." She said, "Either you're going to get it or you don't." And so I took her advice. That same day, I went to see the principal, and he was like, "Okay, I think I'll interview you." And he asked me this one question that I'll never forget. And he said, "What are you going to do if you don't get this job?" And I looked him right in the eye and said, "I'll be the best teacher you ever had next year. I'll continue to work hard and teach and coach kids." But I knew I wanted to do it. But I thank Rebecca Fox for pushing me to seek it out. I interviewed for it, got the job, and just continued to build relationships with people and kids on that campus. And so it was a great transition.
Well, and what I love about these conversations is, sometimes when you make that move out of the classroom and into an administration job, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you left the classroom." And it's like, I never felt like I ever left the classroom. I felt like my classroom changed, but I never felt like, I don't feel like as teachers, it's just kids that we're working with. There's a lot of things that an administrator deals with adults and children that is just like a classroom, and making sure that you are trying to prepare them and making sure they get their work done. Right. And that if you have to help them like with remedial classes, you've got those in place. And so, you talked about learning patience as a teacher. Was there something unexpected you learned about yourself through administration?
Yeah, and we could still talk about that patience, because here I am, a 25-year-old guy who moves from teaching and coaching. I kind of think I was kind of popular on campus. We had a young teaching staff at that school, so we were all pretty cool with each other. We hung out on, I'll never forget, our spot was Chili's up in Cypress. And so we'd hang out and enjoy each other throughout the week. And then boom, I'm all of a sudden their appraiser. And so again, I had to learn about myself, and that I had to be patient with them, and that I had to learn how to continue to cultivate those relationships while being their supervisor. And I'll tell you, I stopped kind of getting invited to some of the some of the Chili's nights, but I still have lifelong relationships with some of those people. And so what I had to learn about myself was that I can still have strong relationships with people while still being their supervisor, their partner in learning, that I can still make that happen. And so it happened fast, and there were some challenges for me personally. Yeah. I don't think outwardly people saw it, but it was tough for me just as a 25-year-old trying to lead people, and not just lead them, but I had also worked with them and was a coach with them. And for anybody who knows about coaches, know how much time you spend with people, and now those coaches that maybe things that you did with them, or now you got to talk to them about it later. So.
And I think you bring up a really great point, because moving into administrative positions, it's hard in and of itself, but I can't even imagine doing that on the same campus that I taught at, because I feel like there's the relationships between teacher to teacher and teacher to administrator are so different. So I can see that being a whole nother set of challenges. And and then you've had a lot of opportunities to try other things. You've been a principal. You're in a central office kind of position. Which one of those kind of has been your favorite one to be in so far?
Well, I always will tell anybody I've been a 2-time high school principal, and I tell people the best job in education is to be a high school principal. Now, I do think it is probably one of the most challenging jobs outside of probably the superintendent. But I was fortunate to be the high school principal of a large high school, suburban high school, and everything is larger than life. Everything is big, and if you like being around people and you like celebrating with young people and working with large groups of teachers, that's the spot for you. And it was a lot of sleepless nights.
Oh, yeah.
But I appreciate those opportunities, and just as in Corsicana, where I was a high school principal as well, just the great relationships that they have, the Friday night football games, and not getting home to midnight, but to just enjoy that, not only with the kiddos, but also the community. And so out of any job that I've ever had, it has been the best, the most challenging, but the absolute best.
And now being an educator now for these many years, thinking about your own schooling, what kind of student were you? Like, did you enjoy school, or were you kind of that kid that you often see yourself dealing with now?
No, I love school. As an elementary kid, and it's so funny because I'm friends with my former teachers on Facebook and stuff like that. As an elementary kid, I was what people probably call, I was bad. I got in trouble all the time. I love, and now I love to laugh. I love to tell a joke. I talk loud. I'm country. And so that kind of, when you're in the third grade and you always want to make people laugh, teachers don't really like that. And so it was fun for me. So as an elementary kid, I was kind of mischievous, but by the time I got in middle school and in high school, I kind of grounded myself. But I've always loved school. I've always loved it. And I think my parents did a great job of instilling that in me. I struggled as it relates to math. I always tell people numbers and letters don't go together. So A plus, that doesn't, you don't add letters. And so anytime I saw that, I struggled. And I always had a hard time with that. And so that's why for me, that was good for me, because I understand when students struggle. It doesn't mean that they don't have the capacity to learn, but they need good instruction. We need to be able to find out why it is they don't get it, and we need to be able to help them right away so that they do get it. And so that's what I believe about learning, that we need to know, we need to assess them, and we need to help them right away. And I've always felt like with math that was my issue all along. People never took the time to find out if I really knew it and to help me right away. And so I had a special teacher in high school, Daryl Edwards, who I tell everybody about. He was a neat guy, very monotone. He didn't jump on a table. His voice never changed, but he was one of the best teachers I had. Why? Because he would stop to find out, Herbert, why don't you understand this? And then we would go through it. He would help me right then in class. And then he'd write out 2 or 3 problems and say, can you do this? And then I'd do 2 or 3 problems, and I would get those right. And he would give me 100 for that. Even if he had given a worksheet or a quiz, all he wanted to know is, can I now do what he just taught? And if I could, and I got all 2 or 3 questions right, he gave me 100. And I made a high A in that class because he did the right things. And so from then on, from like my junior and senior year, because I had him for 2 years in a row, I went to college, made an A in college algebra. I didn't have an issue with math anymore. I actually did my student teaching in 6th grade math.
Wow.
Because, and I thank him for that, because I'm pretty smart kind of guy, but he just did the right things, and I appreciated that.
Well, and I love hearing stories like that, especially when you see like these teachers that aren't your flashy in your face teachers, but they really make an impact because the way they focus on the educational side of things and really getting to know kids. So I love hearing that. Well, Herbert, you've also had I mean, you've got to serve in all these administrative roles. You've got to be a teacher. You've also got to put some of your own thoughts and ideas out there in writing and sharing them with others. Like, do you ever have those moments, though, where being active on social media, sharing out your thoughts, all these positions, where doubt begins to creep in? And if it does, how do you keep that from taking root?
Doubt comes in all the time. I tell people all the time, because people always call me, ask me for advice about things, and I'll tell them right away, I have no advice for you. I don't know, but we can talk through it. Man, all the time I doubt what I do. Sometimes I've even doubted why I do it. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm usually refreshed, and I want to get back out there again to be able to help somebody's child. And so, especially I talked about being a high school principal. There was constantly times where I tossed and turned, and I asked myself, why am I even doing this? I can find me another job, making some money, doing something, and I don't have to worry about everything. And so even I've been fortunate to have some great mentors, and I have people I can call and ask. Sometimes I just don't, sometimes it's hard to understand why you even want to do it, because there are so many challenges in dealing with children, because children come with so many things. And a lot of times we all have great kids, but we have some children who have had tough situations. And it really pulls on you. And so, man, I have doubt all the time. And really for me, my faith has gotten me through it. And to be able to have some good friends who are smarter than me to help guide me through it.
I love that. Well, Herbert, when you think about all the things you've been through in your life, the successes, the failures, the struggles, the triumphs, when you reflect on your path, is there one thing, I'm sure there's multiple things, but what's one of them that sticks out as something that was really instrumental into creating the man we see today?
Oh, that's a good question. When we talk about the man that we see today, and I'll just divert a little bit from that, I think about so much about my father and the investment that he had in my life, the things that he was always trying to teach me that I didn't get at some point. But I think I grew up the most and was when I first got my first principal job. I was a young man and had a great superintendent, but I tell you, when I got the job, all I got was a set of keys. And that was it. And really, I got in the building and I found myself, I went in the office and I found myself saying, what am I supposed to do next? And so I had to grow up quick because that campus had a great principal. I was following a great principal. And it really pushed me. When we talk about what did you learn about yourself, that's where I learned everything to work with that staff, who was a great staff. But that first principal job was the one that really, and I mean, I had a honeymoon. I had a great honeymoon until about October. The door got slammed in my face. And so that grew me up the most. And I'm thankful for that experience, and thankful for those people that actually helped us so much at that school to have so much success.
I love that. Well, Herbert, one way that, I love to always end these conversations is I feel like there are so many things that we hold close to our heart, that we believe in the depths of our soul. And so for the people who might be listening or watching today, if there was one thing that you wish they would walk away with, what is your one thing?
My one thing is, above all else, relationships. You cannot do these jobs, work with other people's children, as I always say, and not take time to build relationships. I've seen so many great teachers that have so many great instructional strategies, great administrative thinkers, but maybe they failed because they didn't take the time to get to know people. And I always tell people, whenever you start new at a campus or you're a new classroom teacher, I know you have ideas. I know you have things you want to do, but just stop and take a few minutes, a few days to get to know people. The time that you spend up front will pay off in dividends down the line. And so for me, it's always, above all else, relationships.
I love that. Well, Herbert, you know that I admire your work ethic and the things that you've done. And so when you agreed to come on today, I was so excited. So thank you for coming on and sharing some of your story today.
Well, I appreciate you, Todd. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Herbert has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.